Little girl ran to the veteran. Single dad crying. They're hurting my mama. What he did next shocked all. A terrified child bursts from the woods. A battle-scarred dad drops his coffee. And in one heartbeat, his quiet life turns into a rescue mission that will expose a secret so powerful it redeems his past and changes everything he thought he knew about love, family, and forgiveness. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The autumn morning wrapped Maple Hollow in a crisp embrace as Jack Turner sat on his weathered porch, both hands cupped around a steaming mug of black coffee. The farmhouse behind him stood quiet, too quiet these days. Morning sunlight painted long shadows across the wooden planks beneath his feet, and his eyes drifted to the empty rocking chair beside him. Sarah had loved that chair. 5 years since cancer took her, and sometimes he still expected to see her there, smiling over her own coffee cup, planning their day together. The morning birds called to each other, their songs a bitter reminder of how she used to name each species by sound alone. Jack took another sip of coffee, grimacing at its growing coldness. Inside the house, the click of dog nails on hardwood announced Ranger's morning routine. The aging German Shepherd mix appeared at the screen door, tail wagging with quiet dignity. "Coming, old friend," Jack said, his voice rough from disuse. He stood, his knees creaking almost as much as the porch boards, and went inside to fill Ranger's bowl. The dog waited patiently, gray showing around his muzzle, watching Jack with knowing brown eyes. "At least you're still here with me, boy." Jack poured the kibble, and Ranger gave a soft woof of thanks before eating. The kitchen felt too large now that Matt was away at college. His son's graduation photos smiled down from the wall, but they were poor substitutes for the real thing. After Ranger finished eating, Jack changed into his running clothes, old Marine Corps shorts and a faded t-shirt. The routine was as familiar as breathing. Stretch, check his shoelaces, pat Ranger's head. Guard the house, he told the dog, who settled onto his bed in the living room with the seriousness of a soldier accepting orders. The morning air had warmed slightly as Jack set off down his long driveway. His steady pace carried him past familiar landmarks, Mrs. Peterson's mailbox with its painted flowers, the Thompsons' cornfield, the old oak tree that marked the halfway point of his 3-mile route. His footfalls created a rhythm that matched his heartbeat, and for these moments, his mind could empty of everything except the simple act of moving forward. A few cars passed, their drivers waving. Jack returned each greeting with a nod, grateful for the small-town courtesy but relieved when they drove on. Maple Hollow's residents respected him. The retired Marine, the widowed father who'd raised his son alone, the man who still helped at the Veterans Center 3 times a week. But they also seemed to sense the invisible wall he'd built around himself, brick by brick, loss by loss. Back home, Jack showered and dressed in clean jeans and a plaid button-down. Ranger followed him to the garden, where summer's last tomatoes clung to withering vines. Jack harvested what he could, knowing the frost would claim the rest soon enough. The work was methodical, peaceful. His calloused hands remembered how Sarah had taught him about companion planting, about the dance between flowers and vegetables. The morning slipped away as Jack tended to his property. There was always something that needed fixing on the old farmhouse. Today it was the fence near the road, worn down by weather and time. He grabbed his tools and set to work, the familiar motions of measuring and hammering filling the hours until lunch. The Veterans Center waited for him after noon, as it did every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Jack drove the 10 minutes into town, parking his old pickup truck in its usual spot. Inside, the center hummed with quiet activity. Younger vets playing cards, older ones sharing coffee and conversation, a few working with the counselor in the back office. "Jack!" Tom Wheeler, who'd served in Desert Storm, waved him over. "Got a new guy today. Could use your steady hand." For the next few hours, Jack did what he did best. Listened. The new veteran, barely older than Matt, talked about nightmares and jumping at loud noises. Jack shared what he could, careful to keep his own demons locked away while offering what wisdom he'd gained through the years. Evening found him back home, warming up a casserole one of the church ladies had dropped off. He'd never asked for the food they brought, but he'd learned to accept it with grace. The kitchen table felt too large for one plate, one glass, one set of silverware. Ranger lay at his feet, occasionally lifting his head when Jack slipped him a bite of chicken. The silence pressed in, broken only by the tick of the old wall clock and the scrape of his fork against the plate. Jack had gotten used to eating alone, but that didn't mean he liked it. Sometimes he turned on the radio just to hear another human voice, but tonight he let the quiet have its way. After dinner, Jack walked his property line. Another ritual, another way to fill the hours. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple colors that Sarah would have captured in one of her watercolors. He checked the fence he'd fixed earlier, making sure the posts were secure. That's when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong in his carefully ordered world. A cry, carried on the wind, faint but unmistakable. Jack straightened, frowning as he listened. The sound came again, higher this time, desperate. It was the cry of someone in deep distress, someone who needed help. The crying grew louder. Jack stepped away from his garden, straining to locate its source. Years of military training had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, every one of them was on high alert. Then, he saw her, a small figure running barefoot down the dirt road that passed his property. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, her dark hair flying behind her, face streaked with tears. Her pink pajamas were dusted with dirt, and her feet were scratched from running on the rough ground. Jack's heart clenched. He moved toward the road, Ranger at his heels. The girl spotted him, and instead of showing fear at the sight of a strange man, she ran straight for him. "They're hurting my mama!" she sobbed, colliding with his legs and wrapping her arms around them. Her whole body trembled. "Please help. They're hurting her." Jack knelt down to her level, keeping his movements slow and gentle. Up close, he could see the terror in her big brown eyes. "I'm Jack," he said in the calm voice he'd used with scared civilians during his deployments. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lily," she hiccuped, her small hands clutching his shirt. "Please, my mama needs help." "Okay, Lily, you're safe now." Jack placed steady hands on her shoulders. "Can you tell me where your mama is?" Lily pointed down the road toward the outskirts of town. "The trailers," she managed between sobs. "The blue one with the broken steps." Jack knew the place, Pine Grove Trailer Park. It had seen better days, now mostly occupied by folks down on their luck. He'd driven past it countless times, but never had reason to stop there. "Did you run all the way here?" he asked, noticing her raw feet. Lily nodded, wiping her nose with her sleeve. "I saw your house from up on the hill. Mama always said if we needed help, look for a house with a flag out front." She pointed to the American flag that flew from his porch. Something protective stirred in Jack's chest. This brave little girl had run nearly a mile, barefoot, looking for help. He pulled out his cell phone and dialed 911. "This is Jack Turner," he said when the dispatcher answered. "I'm at 1487 Maple Road. I have a young girl here reporting domestic violence at Pine Grove Trailer Park. I'm heading there now. Blue trailer, with broken steps." He gave them what details he could. Ranger whined, picking up on the tension. "Stay," Jack commanded. The dog obediently sat, though his ears remained alert. "Come on, sweetheart." Jack scooped Lily up, her small body still shaking. "Let's go help your mama." He carried her to his old pickup truck, setting her gently in the passenger seat. Her feet were dirty and scratched, but nothing looked serious. Still, the sight made his jaw clench. "You're very brave, Lily," he said as he started the engine. "Can you tell me who's hurting your mama?" "Gary," she whispered, pulling her knees to her chest. "Mama's boyfriend. He gets mean when he drinks the grown-up drinks." Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he accelerated down the dirt road. The truck kicked up dust behind them as they headed toward the trailer park. "Does Gary hurt you too?" he asked carefully. Lily shook her head. "No. Mama always makes sure I'm safe. She tells me to hide in my special place when he gets mad." Her voice dropped even lower. "But I heard him hitting her." He was yelling so loud. Jack's military training kicked in, his mind already mapping out scenarios. The police were on their way, but response times out here could be slow. Every second counted in situations like this. They turned onto the gravel road leading to Pine Grove. The trailer park appeared through the trees, a collection of aging homes arranged in uneven rows. Many had seen better days, with peeling paint and sagging porches. Jack spotted the blue trailer near the back, its wooden steps indeed broken, listing to one side. As he pulled up, Muffled yelling echoed from inside the trailer. A man's voice, slurred and angry. Something crashed. A woman cried out. Jack's eyes narrowed, his shoulders squaring. The soldier in him, the part he'd tried to leave behind, surfaced with crystal clarity. He recognized the cold focus settling over him, the same one that had kept him and his men alive in combat. "Lily," he said, his voice firm but gentle, "I need you to stay in the truck. Lock the doors. If anything happens, honk the horn as loud as you can. Can you do that for me?" The little girl nodded, her eyes wide and frightened. Jack helped her slide into the driver's seat, showing her where the horn was. The shouting inside the trailer grew louder. Jack's jaw tightened as he heard another crash, followed by more crying. Through the window, he caught a glimpse of movement, someone being shoved against a wall. His hands curled into fists at his sides. The urge to charge in was strong, but training and experience had taught him to be smart about this. He needed to assess the situation first, find the best way to protect both the woman inside and the scared little girl in his truck. The screen door banged against the trailer's side. More yelling. A man's voice, thick with alcohol, spewed threats and obscenities. A woman pleaded, her voice tight with fear. Jack's eyes narrowed further, his entire body coiled like a spring. The soldier in him, the protector, the guardian, was fully awake now, every sense heightened, every muscle ready. Jack didn't hesitate. With one powerful kick, the flimsy trailer door burst open. The scene inside made his blood boil. A woman was pressed against the far wall, her face bruised, while a man loomed over her with raised fists. Empty beer bottles littered the floor, and an overturned coffee table spoke of the struggle that had taken place. "Get away from her." Jack's voice cut through the chaos like steel. The man, Travis, Jack presumed, spun around, his bloodshot eyes wild with rage. He was younger than Jack, maybe mid-30s, with a day's worth of stubble and a stained tank top. The stench of alcohol rolled off him in waves. "Mind your own business, old man." Travis slurred, taking an unsteady step forward. "This is between me and my girl." The woman, Lily's mother, had slid down the wall, her arms wrapped protectively around herself. A fresh bruise was darkening on her cheekbone, and her lip was split. Despite her obvious fear, there was something dignified about the way she held herself. "Your girl?" Jack's voice remained deadly calm. "The one you're beating? The one whose daughter had to run barefoot down a dirt road looking for help?" Travis's face twisted. "Lily?" He wheeled around to face the woman. "You sent that little brat for help?" He lurched toward her again, but Jack was faster. 25 years of military training kicked in automatically. As Travis swung a clumsy punch, Jack stepped inside his guard, caught his arm, and used the drunk man's own momentum to drive him face first into the wall. Travis struggled, but Jack had him pinned. One arm locked behind his back. "Don't move," Jack commanded, applying just enough pressure to make his point clear. "The police are already on their way." As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Travis tried to push back, but Jack held him firmly in place. "That wasn't a suggestion, son." The woman, still pressed against the wall, stared at them with wide eyes. There was something familiar about her face that Jack couldn't quite place. "Emily?" he asked gently. "That's your name?" She nodded, touching her split lip with trembling fingers. "Lily's safe," he assured her. "She's in my truck." At her daughter's name, Emily's composure finally cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Oh, thank God she's okay." The trailer park erupted in red and blue flashing lights. 2 police cruisers pulled up outside, followed closely by an ambulance. Heavy footsteps thundered up the broken stairs. "Police! Open up!" "Doors open," Jack called out. Situations contained. 2 officers burst in, weapons drawn. They quickly took in the scene, Jack restraining Travis, Emily against the wall, the obvious signs of violence scattered around the room. "Mr. Turner?" One officer recognized him. "You can let him go. We've got him." Jack released Travis, stepping back as the officers moved in with handcuffs. Travis immediately started protesting, but his words were too slurred to make sense. As they led him out, he tried to turn toward Emily. "Baby, don't let them do this. Tell them it was just a misunderstanding." Emily looked away, hugging herself tighter. EMTs came in next, making straight for Emily. "Ma'am, we need to check your injuries." "I'm fine," she insisted, though she winced when they touched her face. "Please, I need to see my daughter." "Mama!" Lily's voice rang out from the doorway. She'd climbed down from the truck despite Jack's instructions, and now she ran straight to her mother. Emily dropped to her knees, gathering her daughter close. "Oh, baby," she whispered, stroking Lily's hair. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Lily pulled back, her small face serious. "I did what you said, Mama. I found a house with a flag." She turned to Jack, reaching for his hand. Her tiny fingers wrapped around his calloused ones, holding on tight. "Mr. Jack helped us." The EMTs waited patiently while mother and daughter held each other, then gently insisted on examining Emily's injuries. They cleaned her split lip and checked her ribs where Travis had kicked her. Nothing was broken, but dark bruises were already forming. One of the officers, Deputy Martinez, according to his nameplate, pulled Jack aside. "You probably saved her life, you know. We've had calls here before, but could never prove anything. This time we've got him dead to rights. Assault, domestic violence, probably more once we dig deeper." Jack nodded grimly. He'd seen that look in Emily's eyes before, the look of someone who'd been living with fear for far too long. The officer continued taking statements while the EMTs finished their work. Through it all, Lily refused to let go of Jack's hand. She stood beside him like a tiny guardian, as if afraid he might disappear if she released her grip. Finally, the flashing lights began to fade as the police cars pulled away, Travis secured in the back of one. The EMTs left too, after making Emily promise to go to the hospital if any symptoms worsened. The sudden quiet felt heavy after all the chaos. Emily turned to Jack, her voice trembling but determined. "Thank you. I don't even know your name." "Name's Jack Turner," he replied softly. "You're safe now." The steady drumming of rain on the farmhouse roof pulled Jack from his restless sleep. He'd tossed and turned most of the night, his mind replaying the scene at the trailer. Even Ranger had picked up on his unease, staying closer than usual, watching him with worried eyes. The bedside clock read 7:15 a.m. when his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Sheriff Tom Cooper's name flashed across the screen. "Morning, Jack." The sheriff's familiar drawl came through. "Need you to come down to the station when you get a chance. Got some paperwork needs filling out about yesterday's incident." Jack rubbed his face, feeling the stubble beneath his palm. "I'll head over after breakfast." The sheriff's office sat in an old brick building downtown, wedged between the post office and Betty's Diner. The rain had settled into a dreary drizzle, turning Main Street into a mess of puddles and gray reflection. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Jack filled out statement forms. His pen scratched against the paper as he detailed yesterday's events in careful, measured words. Sheriff Cooper leaned against his desk, coffee cup in hand. "Travis Cole's got priors," he said. "Domestic violence in 2 other counties. Emily's pressing charges this time." Jack's jaw tightened. He'd seen that type before. Men who use their fists to feel powerful. "She and the little girl, okay?" "Yeah, they're at Sarah's place, the women's shelter over in Miller County, safe and sound." The sheriff paused, studying Jack's face. "You did good, Jack. Real good." Walking out of the station an hour later, Jack couldn't help but overhear the whispers. 2 women outside the grocery store stopped their conversation to watch him pass. "That's him, Jack Turner, the one who saved Emily Carter and her daughter yesterday. Always knew he was a hero. Served overseas, you know." Their words followed him down the street, making him uncomfortable. He wasn't looking for recognition. He'd just done what needed doing. By early afternoon, Jack headed to the Veterans Center where he volunteered 3 days a week. The modest building, with its fading American flag out front, had become something of a second home over the years. Sam Dugan met him at the door, a knowing grin on his weathered face. "Well, if it isn't Maple Hollow's newest superhero, cut it out, Sam." Jack hung his jacket on the coat rack, water dripping onto the worn linoleum. "Hey, I'm serious." Sam's expression softened. "Word travels fast in a small town. What you did yesterday, that matters, brother." They spent the next few hours sorting donations and helping a young vet with paperwork for his benefits, but Jack's mind kept drifting back to the trailer, to Lily's terrified eyes as she'd clung to his leg. "You've got that look," Sam said as they closed up for the day. "The one you get when something's eating at you." Jack sighed, organizing pamphlets that didn't need organizing. Just can't shake it, I guess. That little girl? Maybe because it's giving you purpose again. Sam's voice held no trace of teasing now. Sometimes the good Lord puts people in our path for a reason, Jack. Maybe this is your new mission. Jack shot him a look, but Sam just shrugged and headed for the door. Just saying. See you tomorrow, brother. The rain had finally stopped by early evening, leaving behind a heavy dampness in the air. Jack stood in his backyard, watching Ranger Wolf down his dinner. The German shepherd's ears suddenly perked up, head turning toward the driveway. Jack followed his dog's gaze and froze. A small figure was walking up his gravel driveway, shoulders hunched against the cooling air. Even from this distance, he recognized Lily's purple jacket. In her arms, she clutched a soggy teddy bear, its fur matted from the rain. Ranger whined softly beside him, tail wagging with uncertain hope. Jack's hand froze on Ranger's food bowl when he spotted the small figure through the drizzle. Lily stood at the edge of his driveway, clutching a soggy teddy bear to her chest. Her pink dress was damp, her hair plastered to her forehead from the rain. Lily? Jack set down the bowl and stepped onto the porch. What are you doing out here alone? The little girl's lower lip trembled. Mama said we had to leave the shelter. We don't got nowhere to go. Jack's protective instincts kicked in immediately. He strode down the steps and scooped her up, noticing how cold she felt. Let's get you inside and warmed up. Inside the farmhouse, Jack grabbed his softest blanket from the living room couch and wrapped it around her tiny shoulders. Ranger padded over, tail wagging gently as he sniffed at Lily's feet. That's Ranger, Jack said, trying to distract her as he rubbed her arms through the blanket to warm her. He's friendly. Lily's eyes widened with interest despite her shivers. He looks like a police dog. He is retired, just like me. Jack glanced toward the window. Lily, where's your mama? She's coming. Lily hugged her teddy bear closer. She told me to wait, but I saw your house and remembered you were nice. As if on cue, a figure appeared at Jack's gate. Emily Carter stood there in the drizzle, looking lost and uncertain. Jack opened the front door and waved her in. Emily hurried up the path, her face flushed with embarrassment. Mr. Turner, I'm so sorry. I told her to wait while I figured something out, but she ran ahead. Please, come in out of the rain. Jack stepped aside, holding the door wider. And it's just Jack. Emily hesitated at the threshold, wringing her hands. The shelter. They had an emergency case, a family with 4 kids. They needed our room more than we did, but I didn't expect. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry to impose. We can try the church. You're not imposing, Jack said firmly. I have a guest room upstairs. You're welcome to stay tonight. Relief and gratitude flooded Emily's face, quickly followed by uncertainty. We couldn't possibly. Mama, look, a police dog. Lily had already made herself at home on the floor beside Ranger, who lay perfectly still as she petted his head. The tension in Emily's shoulders eased slightly at her daughter's delight. Jack seized the moment. I was about to make dinner. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and meatballs. There's plenty to share. Emily looked around the warm, lived-in kitchen with its worn wooden table and checked curtains. At least let me help cook? Deal. Jack pulled out pasta and sauce while Emily washed her hands at the sink. Lily remained on the floor with Ranger, telling him about her teddy bear in animated whispers. As they worked side by side in the kitchen, Emily's initial nervousness gradually faded. She chopped onions and garlic while Jack browned the meatballs, the familiar routine of cooking creating a comfortable rhythm between them. The kitchen filled with warmth and savory aromas. Lily set the table without being asked, carefully arranging forks and napkins just so. When they finally sat down to eat, the atmosphere felt almost normal, as if they'd done this 100 times before. This is really good, Emily said softly, twirling pasta on her fork. Thank you. Lily bobbed in her chair, sauce on her chin. Can Ranger have some? No pasta for dogs, Jack said, but couldn't help smiling. He's got his own dinner. Aw, Lily pouted briefly before brightening again. Can I give him a treat later? We'll see. Jack watched as she attacked her meatballs with enthusiasm. How long it had been since children's laughter echoed in these rooms. Since anyone besides him had sat at this table? After dinner, Emily insisted on helping with dishes despite Jack's protests. Lily dozed on the couch with Ranger, the day's excitement finally catching up with her. The kitchen radio played quietly, an old country song about coming home. As Jack dried the last plate, his gaze drifted to the framed photograph hanging on the wall. His old unit in Afghanistan, arms around each other's shoulders, desert sun blazing behind them, young faces full of purpose and brotherhood. His expression softened at the memories. Emily followed his look, drying her hands on a dish towel. "You've done enough," she said quietly. "Thank you for your kindness." Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, casting warm squares of light across Jack's worn wooden table. The sizzle of pancakes on the griddle filled the kitchen with a homey aroma he hadn't experienced in years. Lily sat at the table, her legs swinging happily as she watched him flip another golden brown circle with practiced ease. "Can I have chocolate chips in mine?" she asked, hugging her now dry teddy bear. "Sure can, sweetheart." Jack sprinkled a handful of chips onto the cooking batter. Behind him, Emily dried dishes with a clean towel, her movements careful and precise. "You really don't have to help with the cleanup," Jack said, glancing over his shoulder. Emily gave a small smile. "It's the least I can do. Besides, I like keeping busy." She placed another plate in the cabinet, already knowing where things belonged after just one night. "Thank you again for letting us stay. I promise we'll be out of your hair soon." Jack slid the chocolate chip pancake onto Lily's plate, watching as the little girl's eyes lit up. "About that." He poured more batter onto the griddle. "I know some people in town. Could help you find a permanent place. Maybe even work if you need it." Emily's hands stilled on the dish towel. That's very kind of you, but—" "No strings attached," Jack assured her quickly. "Just one veteran trying to help out." "You were in the military?" Emily asked, resuming her drying. "Marines, 20 years. Jack flipped another pancake. "Retired now, but still got connections in town." "My father was military too," Emily said softly. "Colonel Richard Carter. He passed away a few years ago." The spatula clattered against the griddle. Jack's whole body went rigid. His mind suddenly flooded with memories he'd spent years trying to forget. The sound of gunfire, screaming, accusations. A military court. "Mr. Jack?" Lily's voice brought him back. "Your pancake's burning." He quickly recovered, flipping the slightly blackened pancake onto his own plate. "Sorry about that. Just remembered something." Emily finished the last dish, apparently not noticing his reaction. "I should get Lily ready. Maybe we could look at some of those housing options you mentioned." Jack nodded mechanically, his thoughts elsewhere. "Sure, take your time. I need to check something in my office first." After breakfast, while Emily helped Lily change upstairs, Jack pulled out an old cardboard box from his office closet. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted the lid. Inside, beneath medals and faded photographs, lay a manila folder he hadn't touched in years. He spread the contents across his desk. Military reports, newspaper clippings, court documents. There it was, in black and white, Colonel Richard Carter's signature on the formal accusation that had ended Jack's military career. The words still burned after all these years. Gross negligence. Failure to follow protocol. Responsible for casualties. Jack had been cleared eventually, but the damage was done. His reputation, his career, his sense of purpose, all shattered by one man's false testimony. And now that man's daughter and granddaughter were sleeping under his roof, the irony felt like a cruel joke. Footsteps on the stairs made him quickly shove everything back into the box. He couldn't tell Emily. Not now. Not when Lily was finally feeling safe. When Emily was just starting to trust again. The truth would only hurt them both. The rest of the day passed in a blur of phone calls and arrangements. Jack connected Emily with Sarah at the real estate office, who knew of an affordable apartment above the bookstore. He spoke with Tom at the diner about a waitressing position. All the while, he felt like he was moving through fog, Colonel Carter's accusations echoing in his mind. That evening, after a simple dinner of spaghetti, Lily insisted on showing Jack her drawings. She'd covered several pages with crayon illustrations, stick figures of her mother, herself, and a tall figure she said was Jack. "That's us at the park," she explained, pointing to one picture. "And that's Ranger playing fetch. And that's you being brave like a superhero when you helped Mama." Jack swallowed hard, fighting the tightness in his throat. Here was an innocent child who saw him as a hero, while her grandfather had once branded him a failure, a man who got others killed. When bedtime came, Lily wrapped her small arms around his neck in a tight hug. "Thank you, Mr. Jack. You're like a hero," she whispered. Jack forced a smile, his heart heavy with the weight of secrets and old wounds. "Sweet dreams, Lily," was all he could manage to say. As he watched her skip up the stairs holding her mother's hand, Jack felt the full weight of his decision to stay silent. The truth about her grandfather would remain buried, at least for now. He told himself it was to protect them, but deep down, he wondered if he was protecting himself too. A week passed, like water flowing downstream, each day settling into an unexpected rhythm. The early morning sun found Jack, Emily, and Lily walking toward the chicken coop, their shadows stretching long across the dewy grass. Jack held a bucket of feed while Lily bounced excitedly beside him. "Remember what I showed you yesterday?" Jack asked, handing her a small handful of feed. "Yep. Scatter it wide like throwing confetti," Lily demonstrated with enthusiasm, making the chickens flutter and cluck around her feet. Her giggles echoed across the yard. Emily watched from the porch, wrapped in a borrowed cardigan, a gentle smile on her face. The bruises had faded to yellow shadows, but Jack noticed she still carried herself carefully, like someone used to taking up as little space as possible. Later that morning, Jack's old pickup truck rumbled down Main Street, Emily in the passenger seat. He glanced at her profile, noting how she sat straighter these days. "You sure you're ready for this?" he asked, pulling up to Sally's diner. Emily nodded, smoothing her waitress uniform. "More than ready. Thank you for talking to Sally about hiring me." "Just told her the truth, that you're hardworking and reliable." Jack kept his voice matter of fact, though the words felt hollow with his secret weighing on his conscience. As Emily walked into the diner, Jack noticed Mrs. Henderson and her friend huddled near the window, their heads bent together in whispered conversation. Their eyes followed Emily, then darted to Jack with obvious disapproval. The gossip spread through Maple Hollow like wildfire. At the hardware store, Jack overheard snippets. "Such a good man," taking them in, mixed with darker murmurs. "Living together, and they're not even related." He gritted his teeth and walked past, the bell chiming sharply as he left. But within the walls of his farmhouse, a different story unfolded. Each evening, savory smells wafted from the kitchen as Emily cooked dinner, simple meals that somehow tasted better than anything Jack had eaten in years. Lily's artwork decorated the refrigerator, crayon masterpieces always featuring three figures: a tall man in green, Jack; a woman with flowing hair, Emily; and a small girl between them, herself. After Lily went to bed, Jack and Emily often sat on the porch, the night wrapping around them like a comfortable blanket. They talked about safe topics: Lily's progress in school, the weather, town happenings. But sometimes in those quiet moments, Emily's guard dropped slightly. "I never thought I'd feel safe again," she admitted one evening, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "Lily hasn't had nightmares all week." Jack's chest tightened. He wanted to tell her everything, about her father, about Afghanistan, about the accusation that had torn his career apart. The words burned in his throat, but he swallowed them back. How could he risk shattering this fragile piece? Every crayon drawing Lily proudly presented twisted the knife of guilt deeper. "Look, Mr. Jack, this is us feeding the chickens," she'd exclaim, or, "I drew our family having a picnic." Each time she said "our family," Jack felt both warmed and wounded. One particular evening, Jack found himself sitting on the edge of Lily's bed, listening to her prayers. She knelt beside him in her butterfly pajamas, hands clasped earnestly. "Dear God, thank you for Mr. Jack, and his nice house, and Ranger, and the chickens. And thank you for keeping Mama happy and safe. And thank you for giving us a new family when we needed one." Jack's throat grew tight as she climbed under the covers, her small face serious in the glow of her nightlight. "Mr. Jack?" she asked sleepily, clutching her worn teddy bear. "Yes, sweetheart? I think God sent you." Her words were simple, delivered with a child's pure conviction. Jack felt tears prick his eyes as he tucked the blanket around her shoulders. "Maybe he did," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. He sat there for a long moment, watching her drift off to sleep, her face peaceful in a way that made his heart ache. The weight of his secret pressed down on him like a physical thing, even as Lily's innocent faith in him felt like both a blessing and a burden. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now, in this quiet moment, Jack allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was purpose in all of this, even if he couldn't see it clearly yet. The mid-morning sun beat down on Main Street as Jack pulled his truck into a parking spot outside Johnson's General Store. 2 weeks had passed since Emily started her job at the diner, and their unlikely household had fallen into a comfortable routine. But today, he needed to stock up on supplies. Lily went through milk like it was going out of style. Inside the store, Jack grabbed a shopping cart and started down the first aisle. Mrs. Peterson and Mrs. Mitchell stood near the canned goods, their heads close together in conversation. They didn't notice him approach, living off Jack Turner's charity. "Mrs. Peterson was saying, her voice dripping with judgment. "That Carter woman hasn't got a penny to her name, and here she is, taking advantage of his kindness." "And that little girl calling him Daddy Jack now," Mrs. Mitchell added. "It's just not proper." Jack's hands tightened on the shopping cart. He cleared his throat loudly, making both women jump and scatter like startled chickens. Their faces flushed red as they hurried away, but the damage was done. Their words echoed in his head as he mechanically filled his cart. At the checkout counter, old Mr. Johnson gave him a knowing look. "Don't let them get to you, Jack. Some folks ain't happy unless they're judging others." "Seems that way," Jack replied gruffly, counting out cash for his groceries. "Though I'd appreciate if they'd keep their opinions to themselves." Walking to his truck, he spotted Emily through the diner's window, efficiently moving between tables with a coffee pot. She'd grown more confident in the past weeks, but he still caught glimpses of that haunted look in her eyes sometimes. The town's whispers wouldn't help her healing. When he got home, he found Emily sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale and drawn. Lily was at school, and the house felt too quiet. "I heard them today," she said softly, not meeting his eyes. "At the diner. They were talking about how I'm taking advantage of you." Jack set the groceries down harder than necessary. "Emily, they're right. I should find somewhere else for Lily and me to stay." Her voice trembled slightly. "You've done more than enough, and I can't let them ruin your reputation." "My reputation?" Jack pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "Emily, I spent 30 years in the Marines. I think I can handle a few busybodies and their gossip." She twisted her hands in her lap. "But they're saying such awful things. About you. About me. About Lily calling you Daddy Jack." "Let them talk," Jack said firmly. "You need peace right now. Both of you do. You're saving money, Lily's happy and doing well in school. That matters more than what anyone thinks." Emily looked up, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "But, no buts. Unless you really want to leave, you're staying right here until you've got enough saved for a proper place of your own. End of discussion." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "You're as stubborn as Lily." "Must be why we get along so well," he replied, standing to put away the groceries. Later that afternoon, Jack got a call from Sam at the Veterans Center. "Thought you should know," his friend said gravely. "Travis Cole made bail this morning." Jack's stomach clenched. "How?" "Someone posted it for him. He was seen hanging around the dollar store about an hour ago, looking rough. Keep an eye out." After hanging up, Jack did a thorough check of all his property's fence lines. He installed new locks on the doors and windows, his military training kicking in as he secured the perimeter. He didn't tell Emily about Travis. She was just starting to relax, to smile more easily. But he made sure Rangers stayed close to the house. That evening, after dinner and dishes, after Lily's bedtime stories and prayers, Jack stood at his living room window. The moon cast long shadows across his front yard, and somewhere in the darkness, Ranger let out a low, warning growl. Jack peered into the gloom, his eyes scanning the tree line. Something moved near the old oak. Maybe just a deer, maybe not. Ranger's growl deepened, and Jack's hand instinctively reached for a weapon that wasn't there. He double-checked the locks one more time, trying to ignore the prickle of unease crawling up his spine. In her room, Lily slept peacefully, clutching her teddy bear. Down the hall, he could hear Emily getting ready for bed, humming softly to herself. Jack positioned himself by the window again, watching and waiting. Ranger's growls eventually subsided, but Jack remained vigilant, his soldier's instincts telling him that the peace they'd found might be more fragile than any of them realized. The house creaked in the darkness. Jack sat in his living room, unable to sleep, when Ranger's low growl made him sit up straight. The old clock on the wall showed just past midnight. Another sound, the snap of a twig outside, had him moving swiftly to his gun cabinet. With practiced ease, Jack retrieved his shotgun and grabbed the heavy-duty flashlight from the kitchen drawer. His boots made soft thuds against the wooden floor as he approached the front door. Ranger stood rigid beside him, ears forward, still growling. The porch boards groaned under his weight as he stepped outside. The night air was thick with humidity, and clouds obscured the moon. Jack swept his flashlight beam across the yard in a careful arc, watching for any movement. Ranger padded down the steps, nose to the ground. "Who's out there?" Jack called firmly, his voice carrying across the property. Only cricket songs answered. The beam of light caught something in the mud near his flower beds. Footprints, fresh ones, leading away from the house. Jack's jaw tightened. Someone had been standing right there, watching through the windows. A soft sound behind him made him turn. Emily stood in the doorway, wrapped in her robe, her face pale in the darkness. "Jack." "What's wrong?" she whispered. "Stay inside," he said quietly. "Lock the door behind me." He followed the trail of footprints to the edge of his property, Ranger at his heels. The tracks disappeared into the grass near the road. Whoever it was, they were long gone now. Back inside, he found Emily in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. Lily was still asleep upstairs, thankfully. Someone was watching the house, Jack explained, setting his shotgun aside. "I'm going to put in better locks tomorrow. Maybe some motion lights too." Emily's hands trembled slightly. "It was Travis, wasn't it?" "Can't be sure," Jack said. But they both knew it probably was. He sat down across from her. "First thing tomorrow, I'm calling Tom Cooper. The sheriff needs to know about this." Emily nodded, staring into her tea. "I'm sorry for bringing all this trouble to your door." "Don't apologize," Jack said firmly. "None of this is your fault." They stayed up another hour, Jack checking the windows periodically while Emily told him about the years with Travis, how his possessiveness had turned to control, then violence. Jack listened, his heart aching for what she'd endured. When Emily finally went back to bed, Jack spent the rest of the night in his chair by the window, shotgun across his lap, watching over his home and the people he'd somehow become responsible for. Morning came with heavy clouds and the promise of rain. Jack was already on the phone with Sheriff Cooper when Emily came downstairs with Lily. "Yeah, Tom. Fresh prints right under the windows." No, didn't see him directly, but Jack watched as Emily helped Lily pour cereal. "Listen, if you need me to testify about what happened that first day, I'm ready. Whatever it takes to keep him away from them." Sheriff Cooper's deep voice crackled through the phone. "Travis was spotted at the Gas and Go yesterday afternoon. We'll step up patrols in your area, Jack. And yeah, your testimony would help a lot." After hanging up, Jack installed new deadbolts on all the doors while Emily was at work. Lily helped by handing him screws and telling him about the butterfly she'd seen in the garden. Her innocent chatter made the work go faster. That evening, after Lily was in bed, Jack found Emily sitting on the back porch. Her arms were wrapped around herself, though the night wasn't cold. "I keep having nightmares," she said softly as he sat down beside her. "I dream that he breaks in, that he takes Lily." Her voice cracked. Without thinking, Jack reached over and covered her hand with his. "That's not going to happen," he said, his voice granite, solid with conviction. "You're safe here, both of you." Emily turned her hand over to grip his, and they sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching lightning bugs dance in the darkness. Later, they shared a simple dinner of soup and sandwiches at the kitchen table. Lily had left one of her drawings propped against the salt shaker, stick figures of all three of them, plus Ranger, standing in front of what was supposedly Jack's house. "I don't know how to thank you," Emily said suddenly, looking up from her soup. "For everything you've done for us." Jack looked across the table at her, really looked at her. The gentle curve of her smile, the way the kitchen light caught the gold in her hair, the strength in her eyes despite everything she'd been through. Something shifted in his chest, a warm ache he hadn't felt in years. "You don't need to thank me," he said softly, surprised by the roughness in his voice. "Having you both here, it's been good for this old house." The morning sun cast long shadows across Jack's kitchen floor as he sorted through his mail. Bills, advertisements, and a thick manila envelope from the Department of Veterans Affairs that made his hand pause. He hadn't received anything from the VA in years. Jack set his coffee mug down and opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a forwarded letter, yellowed with age, and a cover note explaining that during a routine file review, this document had been discovered misfiled. The letter was dated 3 years ago. His coffee grew cold as he read the first few lines. The words seemed to burn into his mind. "Dear Mr. Turner, I am writing to inform you of the passing of Colonel Richard Carter and to forward his final correspondence as requested." Jack's hands tightened on the paper. Emily was humming in the other room, getting Lily ready for school. The sound of their morning routine drifted through the house, so normal, so peaceful. He quickly folded the letter and tucked it into his shirt pocket as Emily appeared in the doorway. "Lily's almost ready," she said, smiling. "Would you mind dropping her off today? I need to get to work early." "Of course," Jack said, forcing a smile. He waited until they'd left before pulling out the second letter, the one from Colonel Carter himself. The handwriting was shaky, written from what must have been his deathbed. "Jack, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The doctors give me weeks, maybe days. Cancer, fitting punishment perhaps for a man who's carried guilt as long as I have. I want you to know the truth about that day in Afghanistan. My report was false. You didn't abandon your post. You didn't cause those deaths. I let politics and pressure from above cloud my judgment, and I destroyed a good man's career to save my own reputation. I've lived with that shame every day since. My daughter Emily won't even speak to me anymore, rightfully so. I've failed as a commander, as a father, as a man of honor. I know it's too late for forgiveness, but you deserve to know the truth. You were a damn fine Marine, Turner. I'm sorry I took that from you." Richard Carter, Jack's vision blurred. He stood up abruptly, sending his chair scraping across the floor. Ranger lifted his head from his bed in the corner, watching with concerned eyes. An hour later, Jack sat in Sam Dugan's office at the Veterans Center, the letters spread on the desk between them. Sam read them twice, then leaned back in his chair with a heavy sigh. "Well, shit," Sam said eloquently. "That's one hell of a confession. What am I supposed to do with this?" Jack asked, running a hand through his hair. "Emily's finally finding her feet. Lily's happy, if I tell them about this." "You mean, if you tell Emily her father died trying to make amends?" Sam picked up the letter again. "That he recognized his mistakes? Seems to me that might bring her some peace. Or it might tear open old wounds." Jack stood up and paced the small office. "She's dealing with enough right now with Travis and the upcoming court date." Sam watched his friend with knowing eyes. "Secrets rot a man from the inside, Jack. You know that better than most. How long you planning to carry this one?" "Just until after the court appearance," Jack said. "Once Travis is dealt with and they're settled, then I'll tell her." "Your call, brother." Sam handed the letters back. "But remember, truth has a way of coming out, one way or another." That evening, Jack built a small fire in the metal barrel he used for burning leaves. One by one, he fed his old military files into the flames, fitness reports, deployment orders, the original investigation documents he'd kept all these years. The fire crackled and popped, orange sparks floating up into the darkening sky. Ranger sat beside him, occasionally letting out a soft bark as if commenting on his master's actions. Jack held Colonel Carter's letter one last time, reading those shaky words of confession. Then he carefully folded it and tucked it into his jacket pocket instead of the flames. Some truths needed to be preserved, even if their timing had to wait. Ranger pressed against his leg, whining softly. Jack scratched behind the dog's ears, understanding the concern in those loyal eyes. "I know, boy," he murmured. "I know." The last of the files turned to ash, carrying away decades of bitterness and pain. But the weight of Carter's letter remained, heavy against Jack's chest, waiting for the right moment to finally bring truth into the light. The late afternoon sun streamed through the diner's windows, casting warm golden light across the checkered floors. Emily moved between the folding tables they'd set up, adjusting handwritten signs that read, "Single Mother Support Drive," and "Every Little Bit Helps." Her face glowed with purpose as she arranged donated clothes and household items. Jack watched her from across the room, steadying another table as he set it in place. The diner had closed early for their event, and the usual smell of coffee and pie mingled with the scent of cardboard boxes and fresh linens. "Mr. Jack," Lily called from her spot at a corner booth. "Look what I made." She held up a construction paper card decorated with crayon hearts and wobbly letters. "It says, 'Thank you for helping my mama and me.'" Jack walked over and knelt beside her, examining the card with exaggerated seriousness. "That's some mighty fine artwork there, sweetheart. Anyone who gets this will feel pretty special." Lily beamed, returning to her pile of art supplies. Scattered around her were dozens of cards in various stages of completion, each one unique and heartfelt. Her small tongue poked out in concentration as she worked on another masterpiece. Throughout the afternoon, local women began trickling in, Some came to donate, others to browse through the offerings. Emily greeted each one with genuine warmth, sharing stories and offering encouragement. Jack noticed how the initial awkwardness melted away as Emily listened to their struggles without judgment. "My husband left last winter," one young mother confided, bouncing a baby on her hip. "I didn't know where to turn." Emily touched her arm gently. "You're not alone anymore. We're here to help each other." The diner's bell chimed as more townspeople arrived. Even Mrs. Henderson, who'd been among the first to gossip about Emily staying at Jack's house, brought a box of baby clothes and stayed to help sort donations. "Emily's got a good heart," Mrs. Henderson admitted to Jack quietly. "This town could use more kindness like hers." Jack nodded, something warm expanding in his chest as he watched Emily show a teenage mother how to wrap her baby in a donated sling. The way she moved, spoke, cared for others, it reminded him of better days, of the simple joy of helping people. As the afternoon wore on, Lily distributed her thank you cards to every visitor, earning hugs and grateful smiles. The pile of donations grew, and so did the sense of community in the room. Jack found himself sharing coffee with other veterans who'd stopped by, trading stories and laughs in a way he hadn't done in years. When the last visitor left, Emily turned on the diner's old radio while they cleaned up. A familiar country tune crackled through the speakers, an old Randy Travis song about second chances. Jack found himself humming along as he folded tables. "You know this one?" Emily asked, surprised. "Sarah loved Randy Travis," Jack said softly, thinking of his late wife. But for the first time, the memory brought a smile instead of pain. Emily swayed to the music as she gathered empty coffee cups. "My mom used to dance to this in the kitchen." Without thinking, Jack set down the table he was folding. "May I?" he asked, extending his hand. Emily hesitated for just a moment before taking it. Jack pulled her into a gentle two-step, their shadows dancing across the diner floor in the setting sunday. He couldn't remember the last time he'd danced, but his body remembered the rhythm. Lily looked up from her cards, giggling. "Mama, you're dancing!" Emily's laugh was like music itself, free and light and full of joy. Jack felt it echo in his chest, breaking through walls he'd built years ago. As they moved together in the fading daylight, he realized something that both thrilled and terrified him. He was falling in love with Emily Carter. The song ended too soon, and they stepped apart, both a little flushed. Emily tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, smiling shyly. Later that evening, back at Jack's house, they settled on the couch to watch an old Disney movie Lily had picked out. The little girl sat between them, clutching her favorite teddy bear, but her eyes grew heavy before the first song ended. Soon, she was fast asleep, her head resting against Jack's arm, her feet in Emily's lap. The sight of her peaceful face, trusted and safe between them, made Jack's throat tight with emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you," Emily whispered in the blue light of the TV screen. Jack's heart pounded so hard he wondered if she could hear it. He sat very still, Lily's warm weight against him, Emily's words hanging in the quiet room like a prayer. The morning sun filtered through the diner's windows, catching dust motes in its golden beams. Emily moved efficiently between tables, refilling coffee cups with practiced grace. Her smile came easier these days, and even the regular customers had noticed the change in her. Jack sat at his usual corner booth, sipping coffee while keeping a watchful eye on the door, a habit from his Marine days he'd never shed. Lily sat across from him, tongue poking out in concentration as she colored a placemat with crayons. The bell above the door chimed. Jack's muscles tensed before he even looked up. Travis Cole stumbled in, eyes wild and bloodshot. The stench of alcohol rolled off him in waves. "Where is she?" he bellowed, scanning the diner. His gaze locked onto Emily behind the counter. "You think you can just leave me?" Customers froze mid-bite. Emily's coffee pot clattered against the counter as she backed away. Lily dropped her crayon, eyes wide with terror. Jack was on his feet in an instant. "Outside. Now." His voice carried the steel of command, positioning himself between Travis and Emily. Travis sneered, taking an unsteady step forward. "This ain't your business, old man. That's my woman." "She's not your anything," Jack said quietly, but with unmistakable authority. "Walk away while you can." Instead, Travis lunged, swinging wildly. Jack blocked the punch but caught an elbow to his shoulder that sent white-hot pain through his old injury. They crashed into a table, sending plates and coffee cups shattering across the floor. Despite the pain, Jack's training took over. He managed to pin Travis face down, keeping him restrained until police sirens wailed in the distance. The whole thing had lasted maybe 2 minutes. Sheriff Cooper burst in with 2 deputies, quickly cuffing Travis. "You just bought yourself more trouble, Cole," Cooper growled, hauling him up. As they led Travis out, Jack sagged against a booth, his shoulder throbbing. Emily rushed to his side with an ice pack, while Lily clung to his good arm, trembling. "We need to get you looked at," Emily said softly, touching his shoulder. Jack winced. "I'm fine," he insisted, but his face was pale with pain. Back at the farmhouse, Emily insisted on examining his shoulder despite his protests. In the kitchen, she carefully helped him remove his shirt. The old scar tissue had torn, leaving angry red swelling. "This needs attention," she murmured, cleaning the area with gentle hands. "What happened to your shoulder originally?" The question hit like a physical blow. Jack's jaw tightened. The weight of secrets pressed down on him until he couldn't breathe. "Afghanistan," he said roughly. "An ambush. Bad intel got 3 of my men killed." His hands started shaking. "Your father, Colonel Carter. He blamed me. Said I ignored orders, went in too hot." Emily's hands froze on his shoulder. "My father? He brought me up on charges, nearly court-martialed me." Jack's voice was hollow. "The investigation cleared me, but my career was over. The whispers followed me everywhere." Emily stepped back, her face draining of color. "You knew all this time? You knew who I was?" "Emily, you let me stay here. Let me trust you." While hiding this, tears spilled down her cheeks. "My father destroyed your life and you've been, what? Getting revenge by playing savior to his daughter?" "No," Jack stood, reaching for her. "It wasn't like that. I wanted to tell you, but you didn't." Emily's voice cracked. I thought you were different, that you were honest." She backed toward the door, shaking her head. "I have to go. Emily, please." But she was already gone, screen door banging shut behind her. Jack could hear her muffled sobs as she fled down the porch steps. Hours later, Jack sat alone in the growing darkness. Stars pierced the velvet sky above his porch, cold and distant. Ranger lay at his feet, offering silent comfort. "Sarah," he whispered to his late wife's memory, "I did what I had to, but maybe I've lost them both." The night wind carried no answer, just the hollow echo of his words across the empty farmyard. The morning dawned cold and gray, matching Jack's mood as consciousness crept in. Something felt wrong before he even opened his eyes. The house was too quiet. No sounds of Lily's cartoons, no smell of Emily's coffee brewing downstairs. His shoulder ached as he sat up, a reminder of yesterday's confrontation. "Emily?" he called out, his voice rough with sleep. Only silence answered. Jack's bare feet hit the cold hardwood floor as he made his way downstairs. The kitchen stood empty, morning light casting long shadows across the counter. Everything was neat, orderly, too orderly. His heart sank when he spotted the folded paper on the kitchen table. With trembling fingers, he opened the letter. "Dear Jack, I need time to process everything. What you told me about my father. It's too much right now. Lily and I are staying with Sarah from the diner. Please don't look for us. I'll contact you when I'm ready." The words blurred as he read them again. He sank into a kitchen chair, the same one where Lily had eaten pancakes just yesterday morning, chattering about her day ahead. Now the silence pressed in around him like a physical weight. Ranger padded over, laying his head on Jack's knee with a soft whine. "They're gone, boy," Jack whispered, scratching behind the dog's ears. "Can't blame them, can I?" The morning stretched endless before him. He went through the motions of his routine, making coffee, feeding Ranger, checking the mail. But everything felt mechanical, empty. The house seemed to echo with the absence of Lily's laughter and Emily's gentle presence. By afternoon, he couldn't stand the quiet anymore. He drove to the Veterans Center, seeking refuge in routine and Sam's steady friendship. The familiar brick building with its faded flag offered some comfort. Sam looked up from his desk as Jack entered. One look at his friend's face told him everything. "Rough night? They left," Jack said simply, dropping into a chair. Emily found out about her father. Sam's expression softened with understanding. You finally told her? Had to. After everything that happened with Travis. Jack's voice trailed off. He rubbed his injured shoulder absently. Should have told her sooner. Maybe, Sam agreed. But timing doesn't change the truth that needed telling. He leaned forward, his weathered face serious. Forgiveness takes time, brother. You know that better than most. Jack nodded, throat tight. What if I've ruined everything? Give her space, Sam advised. She's got a lot to process. About her father, about you, about everything. But don't give up on them. The days that followed blurred together. Jack threw himself into work at the center, helping other veterans file paperwork and navigate the system. But his thoughts constantly drifted to Emily and Lily. He knew Sarah's address. Everyone knew everyone in Maple Hollow. Each evening he'd leave a small care package on her porch. Groceries, Lily's favorite cookies, Emily's preferred coffee brand. He never knocked, respecting Emily's request for space. But he couldn't bear the thought of them struggling. A week passed, then another. The house felt like a museum of memories. Lily's drawings still stuck to the refrigerator. Emily's coffee mug in the dish rack. A hair tie forgotten on the bathroom counter. Jack left everything exactly as it was, as if moving anything might erase the proof that they'd been there at all. One evening, after another long day at the center, Jack trudged up his driveway to check the mail. Bills, advertisements, the usual. But tucked between them was something different. A piece of construction paper folded in half. His hand shook as he unfolded it. There, in bright crayon colors, was one of Lily's distinctive drawings. 3 figures stood holding hands under a brilliant yellow sun. A tall man in green, him, he realized with a pang. A woman with long brown hair, and a small girl between them. Above them in wobbly letters. Family forever. Jack stood there in his driveway, holding the drawing as carefully as if it were made of glass, while the setting sun painted the sky in shades of hope. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Jack's front yard, as he worked on replacing worn boards on his porch steps. 2 weeks had passed since Emily and Lily left, 14 days that felt like years. His shoulder had mostly healed, but the ache in his heart remained constant. Ranger lay in the grass nearby, head on his paws, watching Jack work. The steady rhythm of hammering filled the air, each strike echoing Jack's determination to keep busy, to avoid thinking about the empty rooms inside. He paused to wipe sweat from his forehead, squinting at his handiwork. The old steps had gotten dangerous. Fixing them gave him something to focus on besides memories of little feet running up and down them, of shared evening conversations, of family dinners that now seemed like distant dreams. The crunch of tires on gravel made him look up. His heart skipped a beat as he recognized Emily's beaten-up blue sedan coming down his driveway. Ranger's tail started wagging as he bounded to his feet. Jack stood slowly, hammer still in hand, hardly daring to believe his eyes. The car came to a stop, and for a moment, nobody moved. Then the driver's door opened, and Emily stepped out. She looked tired but determined, her eyes meeting his across the yard. Before he could speak, the back door flew open and Lily burst out, her pink backpack bouncing as she ran toward him. "Jack! Jack!" she called out, her face bright with joy. He dropped the hammer and caught her as she launched herself into his arms, her small body warm and real against his chest. "I missed you so much," she whispered into his neck. "I missed you too, sweetheart," he managed, his voice rough with emotion. Over Lily's shoulder he watched Emily approaching more slowly, clutching what looked like old papers in her hand. "Hi, Jack," she said softly, stopping a few feet away. Her eyes were red, rimmed, as though she'd been crying. "Emily?" He nodded, gently setting Lily down. The little girl kept hold of his hand, swinging it back and forth. "I'm sorry," Emily began, her voice wavering. "I'm sorry I left like that. I was confused and hurt, and—" She took a deep breath. "I needed time to understand everything." Jack nodded again, not trusting himself to speak. Ranger circled around them, tail wagging furiously as he greeted both Emily and Lily. "My friend Sarah," Emily continued. "She helped me track down my father's old lawyer. He had more papers, things Dad left behind." She held up the documents in her hand. "I read everything, Jack, about what really happened in Afghanistan, about how my father realized his mistake too late." Jack's throat tightened, The memories he'd tried so hard to bury came rushing back. The firefight, the confusion, the false accusations that had ended his career. "You were innocent," Emily said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Dad knew it before he died. He tried to make it right, but he couldn't find you. The letter you showed me, it wasn't the only one. There were so many drafts, so many attempts to apologize." She stepped closer, reaching out to touch his arm. "You saved me and my little girl," she whispered, "and somehow, you saved my father's memory too. Instead of remembering him as just the man who hurt you, you showed me he tried to make amends. You gave me back my father." Jack felt something break loose in his chest. Years of anger and pain dissolving in the face of her understanding. Without thinking, he pulled her into his arms, and she came willingly, pressing her face against his shoulder as they both cried. Lily wrapped her arms around their legs, creating a group hug. "Don't cry," she said. "Everything's okay now." They stayed like that for a long moment, holding each other as the late afternoon sun warmed their backs. When they finally separated, Emily wiped her eyes and gave a watery laugh. "We brought groceries," she said. "I thought maybe, if it's okay, we could make dinner together, like before?" Lily asked hopefully, bouncing on her toes. Jack looked at them both. Emily with her gentle smile, Lily with her eager eyes, and felt his heart expand with love for this little family that had somehow become his own. "Of course it's okay," he said, his voice rough but warm. "More than okay." Lily let out a whoop of joy and ran back to the car. "We're home!" she shouted, throwing her arms wide. "We're finally home!" They walked together to help her unload the groceries, and soon the kitchen was full of movement and sound. Bags rustled as they unpacked ingredients, Lily chattering about everything they'd do now that they were back. Emily's laugh rang out when Jack couldn't find the right drawer for the silverware. "You moved things around while we were gone?" "Maybe I got a little restless," he admitted, smiling as he watched them settle back into his space like they'd never left. The kitchen filled with warmth and familiar scents as Emily started dinner preparations. Lily climbed onto a stool to help, her small hands careful with the vegetables. Jack found himself smiling more than he had in weeks, something tight in his chest finally unwinding as laughter echoed through the house again. The Veterans Fundraiser transformed the Maple Hollow Community Center into a bustling hub of activity. Red, white, and blue bunting draped the walls, and the aroma of home-cooked dishes filled the air. Jack stood near the refreshment table, watching Emily help Lily arrange cookies on a platter. His heart swelled at the sight. Having them back in his life felt like a miracle he was still getting used to. Sam Dugan approached, clapping Jack on his good shoulder. "Quite a turnout, brother. Must be half the town here." "Sure is." Jack nodded, surveying the crowd. Local families mingled with veterans, sharing stories and laughter. The divide that had once existed seemed to be healing, much like the wounds in his own heart. Lily bounced over, her yellow dress swishing. "Daddy Jack, try my cookies." She thrust a plate toward him, beaming with pride. The term Daddy Jack still caught him off guard, in the best possible way. "These look perfect, sweetheart." He took a bite, making an exaggerated show of enjoyment that made her giggle. Emily joined them, her eyes bright with excitement. "Jack, I've been thinking about something." She glanced around the room. "Look at how everyone's come together today. Veterans, families, the whole community." Jack raised an eyebrow, recognizing the tone in her voice. It was the same one she used when planning something big at the diner. "Your property, it's beautiful, and there's so much unused land," she continued. "What if we could create something permanent? A place where veterans and single mothers could find support, just like we did." Sam's eyes lit up. "Now that's an idea worth exploring." They found a quiet corner to talk, Lily coloring nearby. Emily pulled out a small notebook, her enthusiasm contagious as she shared her vision. "We could start small, maybe convert that old barn into a meeting space, offer counseling, job training, childcare." Jack leaned forward, increasingly intrigued. The idea resonated with something deep inside him, the part that had always needed to serve, to protect, to make a difference. "Hearts of Valor," Lily suddenly announced, looking up from her drawing. "What's that, sweetie?" Emily asked. "That's what we should call it. Because soldiers have brave hearts, and mommies do too." Jack exchanged glances with Emily, both moved by the simple wisdom in those words. "Hearts of Valor," he repeated softly. "It fits." The conversation spread through the fundraiser like wildfire. Sheriff Cooper offered to help with permits. Sarah from the diner volunteered to organize meals. Even old Mr. Peterson, who owned the hardware store, promised to donate building supplies. "See what's happening?" Emily whispered to Jack as they watched people gathering around Sam, who was sketching rough plans on a napkin. This town was just waiting for something to believe in. Jack felt a warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the coffee in his hand. For years, he'd been trying to outrun his past, to fill the emptiness left by loss and betrayal. Now, watching his community come alive with purpose, he realized he wasn't running anymore. Later that evening, exhausted but content, they sat on Jack's front porch, their porch now. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, while fireflies began their nightly dance over the fields. Lily had fallen asleep on the old porch swing, her face peaceful in the fading light. Emily's hand found his, their fingers intertwining naturally. The simple gesture spoke volumes about how far they'd come, how much had changed. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and he caught the familiar scent of her shampoo, lavender and something uniquely her. "You know," she said softly, "I've been thinking about what home really means." She paused, watching Ranger chase fireflies in the yard. "When Lily and I left, we had a roof over our heads, but it wasn't home. And coming back here," her voice grew tender, "home's not a place. It's people." Jack squeezed her hand gently, understanding exactly what she meant. His house had been just a building until they filled it with laughter, with love, with the messy, beautiful reality of family. Hearts of Valor would offer that same gift to others, not just shelter, but belonging. For the first time in years, Jack felt truly present, anchored in a moment he never wanted to end. The weight of old guilt and pain had lifted, replaced by something lighter, brighter. He wasn't just existing anymore. He was living. The gentle creaking of the porch swing, Lily's soft breathing, Emily's warm hand in his. These simple things held more meaning than any medal or commendation ever could. In helping others heal, he had found his own healing. In opening his home, he had found his heart. The autumn breeze carried the scent of fresh-cut grass and hay across Jack's property. Volunteers bustled around, setting up chairs and hanging banners for tomorrow's Hearts of Valor opening ceremony. Jack watched from the porch as Emily directed a group arranging flowers near the newly built community center. A converted barn that now gleamed with fresh paint and purpose. Lily skipped across the yard, her pigtails bouncing. "Daddy Jack, look what I made for the sign!" She held up a carefully drawn heart, surrounded by stars. Before Jack could respond, his phone buzzed. Sheriff Cooper's name flashed on the screen. Jack's stomach tightened. Cooper never called unless something was wrong. "Turner here." "Jack." Cooper's voice was tense. "Travis Cole escaped during transport. 2 officers down. We've got patrols out, but..." The world seemed to slow down. Jack watched Emily laugh with the volunteers unaware. "When?" 3 hours ago. Listen, Jack, he made threats during his last hearing. Specific threats about Emily and the girl." Jack's jaw clenched. "I understand. Keep me posted." He ended the call, his combat instincts already kicking in. "Daddy Jack?" Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Is everything okay?" He forced a smile. "Sure is, sweetheart. Why don't you help your mama inside? It's getting late." The volunteers departed as dusk settled. Jack double-checked every lock, loaded his shotgun, and placed it within reach. Ranger paced restlessly by the windows, sensing the tension. In the kitchen, Emily noticed his changed demeanor. "Jack, what's wrong?" he told her quietly while Lily was upstairs. Emily's face went pale, but she stayed composed. "We should call the police." "Already done. They've got patrols watching the area." Jack touched her shoulder. "I won't let anything happen to either of you." That night, they tried to maintain normalcy. They ate dinner, watched TV, but the laughter felt forced. Jack positioned himself near the window, scanning the darkness beyond their lit yard. Lily's bedtime came, and she sensed something was off. "Are the bad dreams coming back?" she asked as Emily tucked her in. "No, sweetheart," Jack assured her, sitting on the edge of her bed. "Everything's going to be okay. Remember what I taught you about being brave?" Lily nodded. "Like a soldier, that's right. Now get some sleep." Hours crept by. Emily dozed fitfully on the couch while Jack kept watch. Ranger's low growl broke the silence around midnight. Jack's hand moved to his weapon. A floorboard creaked on the back porch. "Emily," Jack whispered, touching her shoulder. "Take Lily and go to the safe room. Now." She was instantly alert, moving silently upstairs. Jack checked his phone. No signal. The landline was dead. Glass shattered in the kitchen. Ranger barked sharply before yelping in pain. Jack's blood ran cold. "I know you're in there, Emily." Travis's voice, slurred and rage-filled, carried through the house. "You think you can replace me with this old man?" Jack moved quietly through the darkness, years of training taking over. He heard Emily upstairs, whispering comfort to Lily. A shot rang out, splintering wood near Jack's head. He ducked behind the wall, heart pounding. "Come out, Turner," Travis shouted. "Face me like a man." "It's over, Travis," Jack called back, keeping his voice steady. "Police are on their way." "Liar!" Another shot, closer this time. "You took everything from me." Jack caught movement in his peripheral vision. Travis's shadow moving toward the stairs, toward Emily and Lily. Without hesitation, Jack stepped out, weapon raised. "That's far enough." Travis spun, his eyes wild, gun wavering. "You don't get it, old man. She's mine." "She doesn't belong to anyone," Jack said firmly. "Leave now, while you can." Travis's face twisted. "No one leaves me." He fired. Jack felt the impact before he heard the shot. Sharp pain bloomed in his side. He stumbled but kept his weapon trained on Travis. Upstairs, Lily screamed. Travis turned toward the sound, and Jack knew he had one chance. He lunged forward, tackling Travis just as another shot rang out. They crashed into the wall, fighting for control of the weapon. Despite the burning in his side, Jack managed to pin Travis down. The younger man thrashed and cursed, but Jack held firm, using every ounce of his military training. In the distance, sirens began to wail. Jack's vision blurred. Blood seeping through his shirt. "Emily, Lily," he called out. "Stay where you are." He pressed harder on Travis's chest as the man struggled beneath him. "It's over, son," Jack said through gritted teeth. "It's over." The sirens grew louder. Jack's strength was fading, but he wouldn't let go. Not with Emily and Lily's lives at stake. The front door burst open. Flashlights, uniforms, shouting voices. Jack rolled to the side as officers swarmed in, securing Travis. "Stay down, both of you," Jack whispered, his voice growing weak as he slumped against the wall, clutching his side. The steady rhythm of hospital monitors filled the sterile room with their mechanical symphony, punctuated only by the soft hiss of the ventilation system and the distant murmur of voices in the hallway. Jack's eyes fluttered open slowly, his vision swimming as consciousness gradually returned. The harsh fluorescent lights overhead blurred into focus, revealing white ceiling tiles stained with years of institutional wear. His mouth felt dry as cotton, and his entire body ached with a dull, persistent throb. As his vision cleared, Jack's gaze drifted sideways and landed on Emily's tear-streaked face beside his hospital bed. She sat hunched forward in an uncomfortable plastic chair, her fingers tightly intertwined with his, as if she feared he might slip away if she let go. Her shoulders trembled with quiet sobs that she was trying desperately to muffle, her dark hair falling like a curtain around her face. The sight of her distress cut through his grogginess like a knife. "Hey now," Jack whispered, his voice coming out rough and gravelly from the anesthesia, each word scraped against his throat. "No need for tears." Emily's head snapped up instantly, her red-rimmed eyes widening with a mixture of relief and disbelief. "Jack!" she gasped, squeezing his hand so tightly her knuckles went white. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, but these were tears of joy mixed with lingering fear. "Thank God you're awake. I was so scared I'd lost you." Jack tried to shift his position in the narrow hospital bed, but a sharp, burning pain shot through his left side like lightning. He sucked in a breath through gritted teeth as the events came rushing back in vivid, terrifying detail. Travis appearing at the property like a vengeful ghost, his wild eyes and unsteady stance. The cold metal of the gun glinting in the afternoon sunlight. The deafening crack of gunshots splitting the peaceful air. "Lily?" he asked immediately, his voice tight with concern that overrode his physical pain. The little girl's safety was his first and only thought. "She's fine," Emily assured him quickly, her words tumbling out in a rush. "She's perfectly safe. She's with Sarah from the diner right now, coloring pictures and eating ice cream. She wanted to come immediately, but the doctor said to wait until you were more stable." Emily wiped her eyes with her free hand, smearing mascara across her cheek. "You saved us again, Jack. You put yourself between us and that madman." The familiar silhouette of Sheriff Tom Cooper appeared in the doorway, his weathered face breaking into a relieved smile that creased the lines around his eyes. He'd removed his hat, revealing thinning gray hair, and his uniform looked rumpled as if he'd been at the station all night handling paperwork. "Good to see you awake, old friend," Tom said warmly, stepping into the room with the measured gait of someone who'd spent decades walking courthouse corridors. He adjusted his utility belt and pulled up another plastic chair. "Thought you'd want to know right away. Travis is in custody. Maximum security this time, no chance of bail." "What exactly happened out there?" Jack asked, his memories of the shooting still frustratingly fuzzy around the edges. "Everything after the first shot is pretty much a blur." Tom settled into his chair and leaned forward, his expression growing serious. "You did good, Jack. Real good. You managed to keep him talking for almost 10 minutes while backup was racing to your location." The man was clearly unhinged, rambling about taking back what was his, threatening to hurt anyone who got in his way. The sheriff shook his head grimly. When he finally realized he was surrounded by 6 deputies with rifles trained on him, he tried to shoot his way out like some kind of movie villain. "Caught you in the side with a wild shot, but my boys took him down clean. Non-fatal, but he's not going anywhere ever again." Tom's voice took on a note of satisfaction. With the assault charges, attempted murder, possession of an illegal firearm, plus his extensive prior record, the DA says he's looking at 25 to life minimum. Could be longer if they push for the maximum sentence. Point is, he won't hurt anyone ever again. Jack nodded slowly, processing the information through the haze of pain medication. The dull ache in his side seemed like a small price to pay, knowing that Emily and Lily could finally sleep peacefully without looking over their shoulders. "I should have just killed him when I had the chance," Jack muttered darkly, surprising himself with the venom in his voice. "No," Emily said firmly, her grip on his hand tightening like a lifeline. Her voice carried a strength that hadn't been there months ago. "You did something much better than that. You showed mercy and restraint, even when he didn't deserve a shred of either. You protected us without becoming like him. That's who you are, Jack Turner." "That's the man I fell in love with." She paused, taking a shaky breath that seemed to draw courage from somewhere deep inside. "That's why I love you." Jack's heart monitor betrayed the sudden skip in his pulse, the electronic beeping quickening noticeably. He looked at her, really looked at her, seeing the absolute truth of her words reflected in her brown eyes. All the walls he'd built around his heart, all the defenses he'd constructed to keep people at a safe distance, crumbled like sandcastles before an incoming tide. "I love you too," he whispered back, his voice thick with emotion he could no longer contain. "Both of you. More than I ever thought possible." A sudden commotion erupted at the doorway as Lily burst into the room like a tiny tornado, clutching a large piece of bright yellow construction paper that fluttered behind her like a banner. Her cheeks were flushed pink from running, and her pigtails bounced with each step. "Daddy Jack!" she cried out with pure joy, rushing to the bedside with the fearless enthusiasm only children possessed. Emily quickly helped her climb carefully onto the chair next to the bed, mindful of Jack's injuries. "Easy there, sweetheart," Jack said, his face breaking into the first genuine smile he'd worn in days despite the persistent pain. "I'm still a little sore." Lily held out her homemade card with obvious pride, turning it so he could see every carefully crafted detail. The construction paper was decorated with an explosion of glitter that caught the afternoon light, surrounded by crayon drawings in every color of the rainbow. The front showed a stick figure, wearing what appeared to be a flowing red cape, standing protectively in front of 2 smaller figures, one with long hair and a yellow dress, the other tiny with pigtails. "I made this special for you," she announced proudly, bouncing slightly in her chair. "Sarah helped me spell some of the hard words." Jack opened the card with trembling fingers. Inside, written in Lily's careful, deliberate handwriting, were the words, "My hero," surrounded by dozens of crooked hearts in pink and red crayon. Below that, in smaller letters, she'd added, "Thank you for keeping us safe." Jack's vision blurred with tears as he studied every inch of the card, memorizing each wobbly line and smudged fingerprint. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, honey. Thank you." Sheriff Cooper cleared his throat and stood up, recognizing the intimate family moment unfolding before him. "Well, I should head back to the station. Got about a mountain of paperwork to file on this case." He placed his hat back on his head and tipped it respectfully. "You rest up good, Jack. The whole town's been asking about you. Place just isn't the same without you keeping an eye on things." As the sheriff's footsteps faded down the hallway, Jack felt a profound sense of peace settle over him like a warm blanket. The crushing weight of his past, the false accusations that had destroyed his military career, the guilt that had eaten away at him for years, the self-imposed isolation that had nearly killed his spirit, seemed to lift away like morning mist under the rising Sunday. Here, in this sterile hospital room filled with the scent of antiseptic and the soft beeping of machines, surrounded by Emily and Lily, he'd found something he thought he'd lost forever in the trenches of Afghanistan. Family. Real. Unconditional. Healing love. Emily noticed his eyelids growing heavy as exhaustion began to reclaim him. "You should rest," she said softly, starting to rise from her chair. "The doctor said you need to sleep to heal properly." "Stay," Jack murmured, tightening his grip on her hand with what little strength he had left. "Both of you. Please don't leave me alone." Lily carefully curled up in the chair next to his bed, pulling a small blanket around her shoulders that Sarah must have packed. Emily settled back into her seat on his other side, neither of them making any move to let go of his hands. The setting sun painted the room in warm golden light that filtered through the Venetian blinds, casting gentle shadows that danced across the walls. As Jack drifted off to sleep, his breathing growing deep and even, his dreams weren't filled with the usual battlefield chaos or haunting regrets that had tormented him for years. Instead, he dreamed of simple, perfect moments. Morning coffee shared on his front porch while watching the sunrise, Lily's infectious laughter echoing through his garden as she chased butterflies, Emily's radiant smile in the golden light of sunset as they worked side by side. These were the dreams of a man who had finally found his way home. Golden sunlight spilled across Jack Turner's farmland like honey poured from heaven, warming the crisp autumn morning with gentle fingers of light. The old oak trees that bordered his property stood like faithful sentinels, their leaves painted in brilliant shades of amber and crimson, rustling softly in the morning breeze. Dozens of folding chairs dotted the freshly mowed grass in neat rows, each one facing a small wooden podium that Jack had built with his own hands. The podium was adorned with red, white, and blue ribbons that fluttered proudly in the gentle wind, and a new sign stood at the entrance like a beacon of hope, "Hearts of Valor, where hope finds home." The words had been Emily's idea, and Jack still felt a catch in his throat every time he read them. They captured everything this place had become, not just a program or a building, but a sanctuary where broken hearts could heal and weary souls could find rest. People streamed through the gate in a steady flow of humanity, weathered veterans in carefully pressed uniforms, their medals catching the morning light, single mothers holding small children's hands, some of them faces Jack recognized from the support groups they'd started, townspeople carrying covered dishes and warm smiles. The atmosphere buzzed with excited chatter and genuine laughter, the kind that comes from hearts that have found their way home after a long journey through darkness. Near the barn, which had been lovingly converted into a community center over the past few months, volunteers arranged long tables groaning under the weight of homemade food. Casseroles steamed alongside fresh-baked bread, fruit salads glistened in glass bowls, and pitchers of lemonade sat sweating in the warming Sunday misses. Henderson from the diner had brought her famous apple pie, while the Martinez family had contributed enough enchiladas to feed half the county. Jack stood on his weathered front porch, adjusting his tie with fingers that trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming emotion of seeing his dream come to life. The morning dew still clung to the grass like tiny diamonds, reminding him of countless other mornings spent alone on this same porch, nursing black coffee and darker thoughts. But today was different. Today marked not just a new chapter, but an entirely new story, one written in grace and second chances. "Here, let me help with that," Emily said softly, her voice carrying the gentle warmth that had become his anchor. She reached up to straighten his tie, her touch gentle and familiar now, no longer hesitant or fearful as it had been in those early days. She wore a simple blue dress that made her eyes shine like summer sky, and her smile carried none of the shadows that had once haunted her features. The bruises were long gone, but more importantly, the fear had vanished too, replaced by a quiet confidence that grew stronger each day. Never could get these things right, Jack admitted with a small chuckle, his deep voice rough with emotion. Even after all those years in the Marines, Sam used to joke that I could field strip a rifle blindfolded but couldn't manage a simple Windsor knot. Emily's laugh was like music, light and free. Well, you've mastered so many other things. I think we can forgive you this one small imperfection. The front door burst open with the enthusiasm that seemed to follow Lily everywhere, and she bounded onto the porch in her favorite yellow dress, the one with tiny flowers that Emily had sewn by hand. Her dark curls bounced with each step, and her face glowed with pure joy. "Daddy Jack, look how many people came!" She grabbed his large calloused hand with both of hers, practically vibrating with excitement. Her small fingers intertwined with his, and Jack marveled once again at how such a tiny person could fill such enormous spaces in his heart. "There's more cars than at the 4th of July picnic!" The sight of so many familiar faces, and new ones too, filled Jack with quiet amazement that bordered on awe. Sam Dugan, his old Marine buddy and the first person to believe in this crazy dream, was helping direct parking with the efficiency of a man who'd once coordinated military operations. His weathered face split into a grin every time he caught Jack's eye, and he kept making exaggerated thumbs-up gestures that made the children giggle. Sheriff Cooper, distinguished in his dress uniform, chatted animatedly with a group of veterans near the refreshment table, sharing stories that made them laugh and nod in recognition. Even Mrs. Peterson, who had once been the town's biggest gossip and Jack's harshest critic, was setting up chairs with genuine enthusiasm, stopping frequently to hug people and exclaim over how wonderful everything looked. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Where once there had been suspicion and whispered rumors, now there was community. Where once there had been judgment, now there was acceptance. The same people who had once crossed the street to avoid Jack now sought him out to share their own stories of struggle and hope. "Time to start, I think," Emily said, squeezing his arm gently. Her touch grounded him, reminded him that this wasn't a dream he might wake up from. This was real. The laughter, the love, the life they'd built together from the ashes of their separate sorrows. Jack nodded, taking a deep breath that filled his lungs with the scent of autumn leaves and new beginnings. As they walked toward the podium, people turned to smile and wave, their faces bright with anticipation. Children ran between the chairs playing tag, their joyous shrieks adding to the festive atmosphere. A young mother with 2 small children approached them shyly, her steps hesitant but her eyes determined. Jack recognized her from the support group meetings, Sarah, who had fled an abusive situation with nothing but the clothes on her back and her children's hands in hers. "Mr. Turner?" Her voice was soft but clear. "I just wanted to say thank you. My kids and I, we didn't have anywhere else to go. And this program." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pressed on. "You gave us more than shelter. You gave us hope." Jack clasped her shoulder warmly, his own throat tight with emotion. "You're family now, Sarah. That's what Hearts of Valor means. We take care of our own." The simple words seemed to open floodgates. More people gathered around, each wanting to share their story, their gratitude, their transformation. A grizzled veteran spoke about finding purpose again through mentoring young fathers. A grandmother described how the community had helped her raise her orphaned grandchildren. A former Marine talked about overcoming addiction with the support of brothers who understood. Each story reflected the simple but profound truth Jack had learned, that healing happens best when hearts join together, when isolation gives way to community, when judgment is replaced by grace. The crowd gradually settled into their seats as Jack approached the podium, his family beside him. Emily and Lily stood proudly at his side, the morning sun creating a soft, golden glow around them like a benediction. The American flag waved gently in the breeze behind them, and Jack felt the weight of all those who had served, all those who had sacrificed, all those who had paved the way for this moment. Jack cleared his throat, looking out at the sea of faces before him. Faces that had become more than neighbors, more than acquaintances. They were now part of something bigger, something beautiful, something that would outlast all of them. 3 months ago, I thought I knew exactly what the rest of my life would look like, he began, his deep voice carrying easily across the quiet gathering. Empty house, empty days. Just me and my memories and the ghosts that wouldn't leave me alone. He paused, glancing down at Emily and Lily, his heart swelling with love so profound it nearly took his breath away. Then one morning, A brave little girl ran up my driveway barefoot and crying, and everything I thought I knew about my life changed forever. Quiet laughter rippled through the crowd like a gentle wave. Lily beamed up at him, her gap-toothed smile bright enough to power the entire county. Some of you know my story, how I lost my way after leaving the Marines, how bitterness and old wounds kept me isolated in this house, trapped by my own anger and pain. Jack's voice grew stronger, more confident. But what I've learned, what Emily and Lily and all of you have taught me, is that sometimes the very thing that breaks you can become the foundation for something beautiful. He gestured broadly to encompass the converted barn with its cheerful red paint and welcoming porch, the new playground equipment where children were already claiming their favorite swings, the vegetable gardens they'd planted together where families could grow their own food and their own hope. Hearts of Valor isn't just about giving people shelter or support, though we certainly do that. It's about second chances. It's about forgiveness of others, and most importantly, of ourselves. It's about learning that our scars don't have to define us, but they can guide us toward helping others heal their own wounds. Emily wiped a tear from her cheek, but her smile was radiant, filled with pride and love. Jack caught her eye and felt that familiar flutter in his chest, the one that reminded him daily how blessed he was to have found love again when he'd least expected it. Look around you, Jack continued, his voice rising with passion. Every single person here has a story of pain, of struggle, of nights when hope seemed like a luxury they couldn't afford. But together, we're writing new chapters. We're proving that love is stronger than fear, that community can heal what isolation broke, that grace can transform even the most broken heart. The crowd nodded in recognition, many wiping their eyes. Sam gave him a proud thumbs up from the back, his own eyes suspiciously bright. Sheriff Cooper stood a little straighter, and Mrs. Peterson dabbed at her nose with a lace handkerchief. So today, as we officially open Hearts of Valor to serve not just our community, but any community that needs what we offer, I want to thank each and every one of you for believing in second chances when the world told you people don't change, for showing up when it would have been easier to stay home, for becoming family when biology failed us. Jack's voice wavered slightly, heavy with emotion. And most of all, I want to thank the two people who taught me that it's never too late to start again, never too late to love, never too late to come home. He turned to Emily and Lily, his eyes full of a love so deep it seemed to shine from within. The gathered crowd burst into spontaneous applause, rising to their feet as one. Children released colorful balloons into the perfect blue sky, and someone started playing guitar, the melody of Amazing Grace floating on the autumn air. As people began to mingle and celebrate, sharing food and stories and laughter, Jack stepped back and watched it all with quiet joy that filled every corner of his being. The property that had once felt like a lonely fortress, a place to hide from the world and nurse his wounds, now hummed with life and purpose and the kind of hope that spreads like wildfire from heart to heart. The sun began its slow, majestic descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink and gold. Families lingered on colorful blankets spread across the grass. Children played elaborate games of tag between the chairs, and the sound of genuine laughter floated on the evening breeze like a prayer of thanksgiving. Jack felt a small, insistent tug on his sleeve. Looking down, he found Lily's bright eyes gazing up at him with the kind of wisdom that sometimes comes from the mouths of babes. "Mommy says you saved us," she whispered, her small voice carrying the weight of absolute truth. "But I think you saved yourself too." A warmth spread through Jack's chest like sunrise, breaking over the mountains as he lifted her into his arms, marveling once again at how this tiny person had changed everything. The flag continued its gentle dance behind them, the evening air filled with the sounds of home and family and hope, and for the first time in more years than he could count, Jack Turner felt completely, perfectly, absolutely at peace. What would you do if you were in their place? Comment your answer below, and let's see how you'd rewrite the ending. If you enjoyed the story of Jack Turner, I handpicked the next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.